Hey, what's up guys, WhirlXbow back here, and today I have a different video than the ones I normally make for you guys. Today we are going to be looking at what decks you should use to hit Legend if you want to hit Legend before the release of Festival of Legend. Festival of Legends being the new set coming out April 14th, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but from the research I did, that's the date it is coming out. So that is in 11 days as of uploading this video. So I figured a lot of people might want to hit Legend before the release of the new set, so why not help make a guide and deck recommendations for the people that want to do so. Also, you guys might just find cool decks you might want to play just because the decks look really cool and they're really good, if I'm being honest. All the decks in this video are really good, in my opinion. So with that being said, I have the decks currently separated into 3 different archetypes. You have your aggro decks, you have your control decks, and you have your combo decks. So with all that being said, how about everyone go grab a drink? I'm currently drinking myself a nice Coca-Cola, and let's jump right into the first type of deck, which is going to be the aggro decks. So for the aggro decks that I found to be the most popular currently in the format, there was even Unholy Death Knight, there was Pirate Rogue, there was even Shaman, and there was Secret Mage. Out of all of those decks, there were only 3 that I found to actually be really good after doing tests, and one that was good, but it really depended on the matchup. The 3 decks that did really good overall were even Unholy Death Knight, Pirate Rogue, and even Shaman. Weirdly enough, the single deck that I hate the most on this list ended up being the least powerful, which was Secret Mage. Secret Mage was still a very good deck, but it was very dependent on your matchup. If you hit decks that were slower or a more combo-y deck, Secret Mage was probably the best overall. The problem is that overall I found out that roughly 33% of your games are against the slower controllier decks, and then 66 were against the aggro decks, where Secret Mage out of the other 3 aggro decks performed the worst out of all of them. So for that reasoning, I don't quite even put it on this list, and for the most part, I would say that if you want to play aggro, I'd go with Unholy, or Pirate, or even Shaman. So enough with that, now let's talk about the decks that actually did make the list. So the decks, as I stated earlier, that made the list were even Unholy Death Knight, Pirate Rogue, and even Shaman. Out of these 3 decks, the deck that had the highest overall win rate was even Unholy Death Knight, and the one with the lowest was Pirate Rogue. Even Unholy Death Knight went 20-10 in 30 games, and Pirate Rogue went 17-13 in the same amount of games. So honestly, they were both really close, and for even Shaman it was 18-12, so kind of like in the middle. But the win rates for all the decks were very similar, all being within 10% of each other, which sounds like a lot, but also take into account it's over 30 games, so like one win is like plus 4% type shit. But the win rate alone does not make it a good aggro deck. You also have to take into account the turn timer. So even Unholy Death Knight had the best win rate overall at 66%, but it also took over a turn longer on average to complete every game. That means that given the same amount of time, you would probably be able to get to the same rank with all 3 of these decks, even though it would take you more games technically with Pirate Rogue than it will with even Unholy Death Knight, but you would have a lower win rate overall, therefore taking more games, yet same rank in the same amount of time. With all that being said, what deck would I recommend to climb to Legend with before the new set? Honestly, even Unholy Death Knight. I had the most fun playing that deck, and that's mostly what I'm looking for in an aggro deck, is just to play the most fun, even though it might have either a worse win rate or a longer game duration. Luckily for me, it does have the best win rate, even though that the game duration is slightly longer than all the other ones. Now that we've talked about the aggro decks, why don't we hop all the way to the opposite end of the spectrum, and let's talk about the control decks that I would recommend playing in order to hit Legend before the release of the new set. Alright, now we're on to the control decks. For control decks, I only really found 2 good ones at the moment, which would be Reno Priest and Blood Death Knight, but I didn't really find any other popular control decks. These were the 2 really big popular ones, and I'm not to say that I didn't try anything else. I tried Dead Man's Hand, was not good, as you guys have seen in the last video I made of the deck. I tried Even Lock, I tried Reno Lock. Both of those decks, I don't think I hit a single Even or Reno Lock in all the games I played for this video, but also, like, they just weren't nearly as good as these 2 when I tried them out. I only played them really both for like 6 or 7 games each, and the decks just felt worse, and I felt like I needed to high roll significantly more to win. So I'm not even gonna try putting them on the list. Just know that those are other decks you could play. They're just not as good as the ones that I listed on the list. Enough with the decks that didn't make the cut. Let's talk about the decks that actually did make the cut. So between Reno Priest and Blood Death Knight, both decks performed nearly identically. Reno Priest being 17-13 and Blood Death Knight being 16-14. So you can't realistically basically pick a deck based off statistics in this case, because they're both basically identical. So if you're going to be picking a control deck to play, to hit legend with, both of these decks definitely can do it. They're both very, very good. It really depends on how you want to close out the game. If you want to play the more typical control deck where you're dealing with all their minions and you really win the game with one card, go with Death Knight. Alexandros is probably the single best win con, and then you have really good tech cards like the new Patchwork that you can play, and Corpse Explosion and Blood Boil. All of these cards are just so good if you want to play the actual control matchup. Now, if you want to win with more of a combo finisher, more OTK style, go with Reno Priest. The Anduin, the Shadow Reaper Anduin and the Raza the Chained combination is just so good that no matter what, it's always going to be good. So if you want to pick one or the other to play, honestly, that's up to you. If I had to pick, I would probably go Reno Priest. It is one of my favorite decks of all time, and it is the deck it's the second deck on this list that I have the most amount of experience with. Now, with all the talk of control decks out of the way, let's jump to my favorite type of deck and the section I'm the most excited about, being combo decks. Alright, for the combo decks that I played for this video, I played some Mind Warlock, Cthulhu Druid, Quest Mage, and Shudderwock Shaman. Out of all these decks, only one of them didn't make the cut, which was Quest Mage. Honestly, the new version of Quest Mage is really bad. As much as it hurts me, as much as I hated the original version of the deck with parrots and whatnot, kind of wish the parrot version would come back just a little bit slower if possible. I don't quite know how you do that, but there's definitely a way to make it slower and still fun to play against. But honestly, the new version just ain't it. For the decks that didn't make it, I'm going to start with the one that had the lowest win rate, that being Cthulhu Druid. Cthulhu Druid, for me, had a 14 and 16 win rate, which is the only deck on this list that has a negative win rate. The reason I'm still putting on this list is because of how well this deck started. This deck started being 10-1, and I remember distinctly why it had one loss, and it's because I was an idiot and I misplayed in the game, and I played my Sphere before my Twig, not being able to wipe the board and win the game. That is the only reason it was 10-1, or else it would have been 11-0. So for that reason, I still want to put on the list, even though in the later games it was really bad, and I just came to the conclusion that the deck is very matchup dependent, just like Secret Mage, but Secret Mage did not have nearly as strong as a start coming out, which is why I did not put it on the list. Next, we'll talk a little bit about Mind Warlock. Mind Warlock I had a 50-50 win rate with, and I think that is partially due to the nature of the deck, where you don't really have a favorable matchup. Your favorable matchups are the games where you draw really well. The deck is super draw dependent, where if your potion is at the bottom of your deck, you've probably lost the game to any aggro deck. If your potion's at the top of your deck against an aggro deck, you probably lost because now you're one card down in your hand. On the other hand, against control, if your potion's at the top of your deck or at the bottom of the deck, you have a really good chance to win. But if you hit a Druid, you just lose because you don't have enough damage, right? So for all these reasons, the Mind Warlock deck just kind of felt 50-50. If your Druid opponent gains a lot of armor, you can't beat them. If your aggro opponent has a good start, you can't beat them. But if either of those are mediocre, you kind of come out ahead. So that's why I'm thinking Mind Warlock should be on the list and is definitely good, and you could definitely hit legend with it. Just know that it might take you a lot of game. Now for the deck we've all been waiting for, let's talk a little bit about Shudderwock Shaman. This is the single deck I had the highest win rate with, being 21-9. That's a 70% win rate in my 30 games. That's really good. And I know for a fact a couple of the losses were not losses, like, they're games I definitely won if I didn't misplay. Type of thing where I played Toxin before Firemancer Flurk. Now, with all that being said, what combo deck do I recommend to hit legend? I'm fairly certain it's obvious, but I would recommend Shudderwock Shaman. Out of all the other combo decks on the list, it has the highest win rate, so obviously I think it's the best. Also, I found it to have the shortest turn timer, so therefore you're able to get more games in. So even if you're not as good as I am with the deck, well, you could probably make up for it in the fact that it probably has the fastest games out of all the other combo decks. Cthulhu Druid typically had to go to fatigue. Mind Warlock was typically going to, like, you know, turn 11, 12, 13, because you just have to draw throughout your entire deck and then also be able to play, you know, discount your things and play everything. Versus Shudderwock Shaman can just steal a game on turn 5 because of Firemancer and Toxfit. So for that reason, I have to give the best combo deck award to Shudderwock Shaman. So in conclusion, you could hit legend with any of these decks. The ones that I recommend are the ones I think you could probably do it with the fastest in their respective archetype, right? So even Unholy Death Knight for aggro, Reno Priest for control, and Shudderwock Shaman for combo. All of these decks are probably the best in their own respective feel, at least in my opinion and in the stats I found. But if you don't like playing, say, even Unholy Death Knight, and you really like playing aggro and you much prefer Pirate Rogue can do it just as easily. Same thing with even Shaman, same thing with Mind Warlock, same thing with Cthulhu Druid, same thing with Blood Death Knight. All of the decks I played were kind of fun, except for maybe Pirate and even Shaman. I just don't like those decks personally. All the other decks I had a fair amount of fun playing, so play whatever deck you find is the most enjoyable. You might not hit Legend before the new expansion, but if you do want to hit it before the new expansion, in my opinion, the best deck to hit Legend with at the moment is Shadowwalk Shaman. Just grind that out for a day or two, hit your Legend, then play whatever deck you want to Legend, and then this way, when the new set comes out, you could kind of just play whatever, and you don't have to care about your rank, especially if you want to end the season in Legend. So yeah, if you guys want any of the decks that I mentioned in today's video, all the deck lists are down below. Just be aware that there is a kind of a bug going on with decks that run ETC, and when you copy paste the code into it, sometimes it doesn't work, so you might have to recreate the deck by physically manually entering the cards. Just know that that is a thing. That is not my fault. That is Blizzard being a small indie dev that needs more money to complete their game. But besides that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did, don't forget to like and subscribe as always. Follow me on Twitch and Twitter. You guys can also come back later tonight to come watch me play some of these decks live on stream over here on YouTube. And yeah, besides that, have a great rest of your day. Good luck climbing ladder, and I'll see you guys all in the next video where I don't know what we're going to be playing yet. So yeah, with that being said, I'll see you guys all there. Peace.